lady married all 7 brothers in a family. And upon the 7th death, the detectives were rather curious. So they went to the lady and they asked her, well, you're going to have to explain this. And she said, I'd be happy to. And she was asked, what did the first husband die from? And she said, poison mushrooms. Second husband, poison mushrooms. Third husband, poison mushrooms. Detectives beginning to see a pattern happen. Fifth husband, poison mushrooms. Sixth husband, poison mushrooms. And the detective goes, let me guess what the 7th husband died of. And she says, go ahead. And he said, poison mushrooms. She said, no, he didn't. What did he die of? A blow to the head. Why? He wouldn't eat the poison. Sorry. I apologize. That was old and well-worn, but worthwhile. The picnic is coming up in a couple of weeks. Is there a sign-up sheet? We have that out, ready to go. 10 o'clock is the time of the service on Picnic Sunday. So we will have food for everybody. We will be having hot dogs and hamburgers. And we're going to have the corn again. And so I'll see you there. I hear Joe's calling bingo, so we'll have prizes. Somebody might win a quarter. Did you ever play?
Or a box of milk duds.
Or a box of milk duds. I want the milk.
I need the quarter.
Today's story in the 12th chapter, we're going to be spending a couple more weeks in the 12th chapter, deals with an interesting situation. And it could be basically told today. Let me tell you what the Sadducees were like. They weren't a very big group because they were a very exclusive group. They were the ones that owned the property. They were the ones that ran things. Most of the Sanhedrin was made up of the Pharisees. Except for the top leadership spots, they were always Sadducees. Now, the difference between the Pharisees and the Sadducees were quite succinct. Pharisees had more money. Pharisees had a really healthy self-image. In fact, they were quite arrogant. They didn't believe a lot of the stuff that was being propagated. They didn't like all the rules that were being brought forth by the Pharisees. In fact, they limited themselves to the books of Moses, the Pentateuch, or the law. And they were very proud of that. They also didn't believe in all the spiritual mumbo-jumbo. Okay? They thought themselves more, how can you put it, more reasonable. They believed in what they could see, smell, taste, touch. They did not believe in things like resurrection or life after death or spiritual things. They were very similar to one of our former presidents, Thomas Jefferson. Took the Bible and literally cut out all the miracles and supernatural things and put it together, and it became known as the Jefferson Bible. So at the end of the Gospels, the Jefferson Bible read this, and they put him in a tomb and sealed it up. That's what most people believe today. Some of us may have been there for a while. Think about it. Do you have a God that's active in your life? Do you have a God that speaks in such a way that you can hear from him? Do you believe this weird stuff that other Christians believe, that Jesus is alive and well and functioning in our world? If you believe that, you are in a minority. You're not in the majority. Most people believe this, that God sort of wound the world up and it'll run itself out and then he'll take over again. It's not what the Bible says, but that's what most people believe. They won't tell you they believe that. They'll say, oh yes, there's a God and I believe in heaven and hell and all those things. But that's not what they really believe. Because if you watch their lives, they never ask the question, what does God think? How is he leading? What is he doing? Because that's what's going to separate true followers of Christ and people that just blow smoke. Anybody ever go fishing? Did you ever meet somebody who talks about fishing but never actually go fishing? They caught fish this big, hundreds of them. Nobody's ever seen them, but they've caught them. Their boat is always bigger. Their spots are always better. Smoke. Well, Jesus is beginning to make inroads in the Jewish community. And the Pharisees have been tied up in theological knots by Jesus throughout the Gospels. And finally, the Sadducees have decided to put an end to this charlatan. And so they came up with this wonderful test for him that they knew he couldn't answer. And he is just going to be made to look foolish. Now, they took this out of the law. And the reason this was in the book of the Pentateuch was to keep families and going and heirs getting the property, so this isn't dispersed into people who don't deserve things. So they come up and they say, okay, master, here's what we got. A lady marries a man, and he eats poison, no poison mushrooms. And he dies, and then, as according to the law, the brother marries, and he dies. And then the next brother married. Sort of sounds like a Cartwright wife, doesn't it? They didn't last the episode. Did you ever notice that? But this is the opposite one. But she goes through all 7 brothers. And then he says, so once they get to heaven, who's going to be her husband? Interesting. Why would they claim to know anything about a place that they don't believe in? See, here's one of our problems in walking with God. It's we like to personify things. First, let me clue you in about heaven. It's not like here. I have my own pictures of heaven. I don't know if they're true. I don't care if they are. They're my pictures. And I know what I'm going to eat in heaven. We're going to have shrimp from the Beach Club in Disney. We're going to have pizza from Giordano's in Chicago. We're going to have steak from a restaurant in Wisconsin Rapids that's no longer there. It was called The Vintage. And they had a center-cut sirloin wrapped in bacon. You could cut it with a fork. It was that good. Aged, just, oh. Garlic herb rolls. Remember that place, honey? We'd go there to get away from everybody and just walk out wishing we didn't go there because we ate too much all the time. Greg, you've known what that's like. Yeah. That's why I don't go to all-you-can-eat places. Bad news when the food's good. I like out of all-you-can-eat places that isn't too good because then I can complain and I don't feel good. But that's my view of heaven. What is heaven going to be? It's going to be a fulfillment. It's not going to be a ripple. You're not going to miss things. Everything you hope life would be today is going to be fulfilled in heaven. How can that be, Pastor? I don't know. I'm not God. All I know is that's the promise. It's not like earth. People are saying, God's going to come up and make a new earth, and everybody's going to get 85-inch TVs with unlimited cable for nothing. Sort of a person type of thing, isn't that? We don't understand it. Don't make Jesus into another guy. Because he's not. He's 100% man, and he's 100% God. Wait, that's 200%. How can someone be 200%? Definition of God, they don't have to follow the rules. Are you with me? Don't personify him. He is not like we are. He is different. His thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. Appreciate the fact that he not only saves us, but he befriends us. He not only befriends us, he forgives us. He pulls us close. He overlooks our sin. He is phenomenal. And if you continue to make him like man, what you will do is you will have a God that is so different from the one who is really there that you'll miss out on most of the blessings. Any of you ever get into a situation where you know that there's no answer for it and somehow God comes through? Ever have that happen? Is it just me? Ever have those God moments? Why are they God moments? Because they don't fit. Peace in a circumstance where you shouldn't have peace. Maturing when you don't realize, where did I mature? Friendships that are those which build us up when other relationships tear us down. That's the problem with the Sadducees. They had a God who was kept over in the corner and only pulled out when you need him. Sort of their God was sort of like a spare tire in their trunk. We have a God we'll call on when we get a flat tire. Until that time, let's keep him out of view, and we'll just travel down the road. Second problem. They didn't believe in God's stuff. life after death. How can anybody know? That's just people talking. This miracle stuff, nobody's ever actually seen a real miracle. Okay. You don't know my Jesus. I held a baby that was pretty good as dead. Didn't know it. Blind, deaf, and dumb. Doctors basically said to the parents, no hope. So they brought him to church the next day and had me pray for him. I'd like to take the credit, but I didn't know anything about it. Wasn't really friends with the parents, so I was just sort of doing what a pastor's supposed to do. So they hand me this baby. It was very calm. Near dead you usually are. And I prayed for him. Next week I hear the story. Pastor, we brought our baby to you. And it was blind, deaf, and dumb. And the doctors say it wouldn't last a week. Now he's so active we can't control him. He's gurgling. He is so a miracle happened. Now, I'm glad I didn't know because I would have wanted to take credit. You know, bring forth your troubled children. Let me pray for them because my hands of healing will lay on them and they will begin to... Well, no, it wasn't my hand, but it was my faith, you know. Because where you folks were lay people, I was spiritual, and I knew God from heaven would come down through my hands. No, it didn't happen that way. I was clueless. God showed up. Can you think of moments in your life where God shows up? Got to remember those. Mary used to ponder things in her heart whenever Jesus would blow her out of the water, which he did on numerous times. I love it. And Mary pondered these things in her heart. In other words, she was fried out of her gourd and was just trying to calculate what is going on here. See, most people don't want to deal with that. That's for these religious crazy people. You know what I'm talking about? These Christians that get in the way. That's why a lot of scholarly type folks don't want prayer in school. Teachers have been fired for having Bibles on their desk. They get fried over one nation under God in the Pledge of Allegiance. Why? Because it's not rational. But Jesus looks at these so-called learned men and said, you don't read the law, do you? Because God doesn't say, I was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He says, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I am not the God of the dead. I am the God of the living. And that's what we stand on as followers of Christ. I tell people I'm not going to die. I'm going to change. Thank you, Lois, for bringing that point across. I am going to live forever. Because when my eyes close on this earth, they will open in heaven. I don't get sad at funerals for people I know are followers of Christ. When John went home to be with Jesus, my thought was, oh, how terrible it is for John. Now, I felt for his wife. I thought it was cool that I got to preach the gospel to over 100 Amish people. Yay! But John, I had no worry about. Because when he closed his eyes on this earth, he opened them in heaven. That's the God we serve. Here's our challenge. Are we going to fit in, or are we going to stand out? Are we going to allow our belief and our faith system to match the world we live in? Or are we going to be transformed by the presence of the living God in our lives? I'm not interested in being a part of this culture. I'm interested in belonging to Jesus. Of continuing that conversation, him and I, in such a way that it never ends. And that's what he was talking to the Sadducees about. You claim to be spiritual leaders, but you have no spiritual touch. You claim to be wise, but really you're fools. Because here this God is who wants to embrace you, and you turn your back. No more. My favorite statement by one of my teachers in Bible school was this: any dead fish can float downstream. It takes an alive one to swim against the current. The minute he said that, I knew my role in this world for the rest of my life would be swimming against the current. Because you know what? Me and Jesus are a majority. And no matter where I go, and no matter who I talk to, and no matter where I'm at, I know this: Jesus is still the way, the truth, and the life. Period. Amen? Stand with me, please. Lord God, we come before you and ask that you would minister and move in our lives, that your touch would be upon us, and that, Jesus, we would walk with you. We turn to you right now and ask, Lord, that you would hear our prayers right now, that you would minister to our hearts and lives, that your presence